control. I'm seeing red. Watch you rise, watch you fall. Now I'm about to break. Face the pain, no escape. Can you step to this? Face the pain, no escape. Can you step to this? Face the pain. Face the pain, no escape. Can you step to this?
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Fixed Fights podcast with Kurt and Ben. As always, I'm Kurt. I'm here with my main man, Ben. What's going on this week, dude?
Not a lot, man. I am feeling pretty good and refreshed after a weekend in nature, a weekend a little bit unplugged, so I'm feeling pretty good. And pumped to talk about these fights. And we were just talking about this before we clicked record, man. This is one of those weeks where Bellator is probably putting on a better card than the UFC, which is always interesting to me. So I'm looking forward to talking about these fights.
Yeah, I would say Bellator definitely has the better card, pre-injury and probably post-injury. But where'd you go, man?
Just like kind of the middle of nowhere, Missouri, like literally what I would best describe as the middle of nowhere. But you know, it's good shit.
So some woodsy stuff.
Yeah, a little bit. You know, watch the sun, that kind of nature shit. Yeah, nice. A little bit of a break, and it's always nice. I love coming back on like a Sunday and watching the fights with no commercial break.
There you go. Yeah,
just like fast forward, just give me the fights. I love it.
All filler, or all killer, no filler, right?
Exactly.
All right. So we do got some big news that literally just dropped before we started recording this show. It looks as though Amanda Nunes is out of her fight next weekend against Megan Anderson. From what I saw on MMA Fighting, and I looked on ESPN MMA too, but it looks like she has an undisclosed injury. But the injury doesn't seem to be too serious. It looks like they are going to attempt to make the fight in early 2021. But that's a big blow to the UFC, 255 card? Because now you're looking at just the main event with Davison Figueiredo and Alex Perez. For me too, like Anderson and Nunes was the co-main event, but I kind of saw it as the bigger fight, right? Like Amanda Nunes is literally one of the goats of the sport. I think she still brings a lot of eyes. She's like an absolute killer. So that's definitely a big loss for that card.
Yeah. Wait, actually, so hold on. Correction. She was scheduled for 256 with Megan Anderson on December 12th. We're confusing the co-main event for 255.
Oh yeah, why do I? Yeah, what? I'm crazy.
You're confusing your female weight class goats, baby. But I mean, still like that UFC 250. Well, 255 is not super strong to begin with, but 256 is also now has. I mean, I don't know who they could possibly fill in. I mean, you can't put Megan Anderson without Amanda Nunes. Like you know, it's not like they're going to find a new opponent for Megan Anderson and have her headline that card.
You know what? Yeah, I had this all wrong, man. I don't know what I was thinking.
So I had it wrong too.
You know what? Like the Shevchenko and the Maia fight keeps like slipping my mind. You know what I'm saying? It's getting like no real build up. Like another thing with Shevchenko, like not many people are thinking this is going to be a relatively close fight, right? Peter Yan and Aljamain Sterling is on that card. I think that would be a suitable main event, and the card behind it actually doesn't look too bad. So yeah, I don't think the card losing that fight is that big of a blow. Again, like not seeing Amanda Nunes is definitely sucks, but yeah, I had these cards all wrong. I apologize. It was
this is me too.
I don't know what the hell I was thinking. Jesus.
I mean, yeah, the Shevchenko fights just kind of like happen, and then I don't like really realize it often until like a couple days in advance. But that's another topic for discussion, is the weakness of women's flyweight. But yeah, the UFC kind of is running out of steam here at the end of the year, right? It doesn't look like we're gonna have any Conor McGregor fights in 2020. It doesn't look like, or anymore, I should say. Amanda Nunes is not a big star, but certainly one of the company's bigger stars, and now she's off. Not a ton of huge fights left for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And they usually like to stack that end of the year card, but this year, I mean, to us, the Petr Yan fight, Aljamain Sterling is amazing. It's a great fight, but to the casual fan base out there, it's not the biggest fight. We'll see what they do. You know, I never count anything out with the UFC. They usually pretty good at pulling things out of their asses. But yeah, it's getting a little thin, man. Hey, let's stay in the featherweight division in women's MMA because we had another. I think it's a big story coming out. Kayla Harrison is going to be making her featherweight debut at Invicta 53. It seems as though she's still in contract with PFL. I believe they announced that they're going to be coming back in April 2021. You know, I know they've had a lot of disgruntled fighters, but I think this is big news for Kayla Harrison's career and for women's MMA as a whole.
Yeah, I think it's big news basically because it opens the door for Kayla Harrison fighting at 145 in the future. I think there was probably some question, given that she had only fought at 155 so far in the PFL, which is, you know, women's lightweight is a division worldwide that barely exists. So I think, and not that women's 145 is a particularly deep division either, but it's definitely way deeper than 55. So I think the real news here is like, hey, Kayla Harrison announcing to the world, I can fight at 145. And if that's the case, you know, then you get a lot more kind of fun fights on the table. You know, Julia Budd, Cyborg, Amanda Nunes, all those people, I'm sure people are going to be clamoring to see Kayla Harrison fight. I also think even though she is still under contract with the PFL and plans to fight for the PFL in 2021, that Invicta UFC relationship is so strong that it kind of leaves the door. I don't want to say opens the door, but it like gives it a crack to Kayla Harrison fighting in the UFC, just because typically for women's MMA, Invicta is a direct pipeline to the UFC. Yeah, so obviously she's going to be with PFL in 2021. I don't see that changing, especially if she has $1 million payday on the line. But just the fact that she's fighting for Invicta means she's in the same room as you know, fighters that typically go directly to the UFC.
Yeah, I mean, it just brings a lot of intrigue, right? Yeah, 145 as a whole is not too deep. 155 even less deep. You know, like you said it, man. She's jumping into a division with two of the female goats hanging out in it. You know, whether she were to fight in Bellator or the UFC. Yeah, I think it's bright news. You know, the divisions are so shallow, and you mentioned like Julia Budd too. Like she's a top fighter, but who is the PFL going to really bring in to challenge her at 145? You know, it's like they're holding on to a hot commodity. I don't think it's, and you know, PFL also has a deal with ESPN2, so that just makes a whole lot of sense. Yeah. I would guess we're going to be seeing Kayla Harrison versus Amanda Nunes maybe relatively soon. You never know.
Also, man, like besides all of that news, like it's just good to see Kayla Harrison is still really young in her MMA career, and it's just good to see her getting, like, she needs cage time. I know she went to a couple decisions in the last season, but she's going to need cage time. She needs to test out probably 145. She is probably realizing that, hey, if I really, well, she probably doesn't think she can continue to make $1 million every year fighting at lightweight for PFL.
No.
You know, I assume PFL might cut their losses at some point there, but I think she probably sees and recognizes that, hey, there's even bigger fights to be made at 145. Even like Holly Holm, Jermaine Duran to me, even those are like pretty big fights for Kayla Harrison. So I don't know, man. I'm pretty excited about this news. As somebody who covers Invicta, there's still no media, so I can't go and watch her fight live, unfortunately. But it's exciting for me, and I think it's a pretty exciting development for women's MMA overall. Just the fact that Kayla Harrison is basically announcing, hey, I can make featherweight.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see, and that's going to be another big test for her too, because she's a thick girl. She's got a lot of muscle to her. She's very well built. So I mean, we'll see, but yeah, I think it's big news, and I'm excited to see it, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's just stick really quick on I guess like fight announcement and fight development news. Darren Till pulled out of his fight with Jack Hermanson the other day. I believe they're going to be headlining a UFC event in, I think, like mid-December. I don't have the exact date or, you know, reference name to it, but Kevin Holland is going to be stepping in, and I think he is a really interesting replacement. He's been on a roll lately. He's fighting often. He had that little spat with Israel Adesanya, and we kind of said it last week too. We're like, you know, it was fun, but Kevin Holland is nowhere near Israel Adesanya. But look at that. You planted the seed, and now you're fighting Jack Hermanson, who's still ranked like what, number 2 or 3 in the division, I'd imagine, 4. You get a win over Jack Hermanson, and now people start grouping you up with the Robert Whitakers and Darren Tills, Jared Cannoniers of that division. And again, you've already planted the seed with Adesanya. There's videos. You guys are trolling at each other. He knows who you are. So yeah, this is a good, interesting replacement and a big step up for Kevin Holland.
Absolutely. And I think we've talked about this before. Like, I love Kevin Holland. I think he's a very talented striker, and I think he's a really talented grappler that I think sometimes people sleep on with him. But hopefully this, like, I'm going to fight whoever, whenever type of attitude doesn't backfire. I'm a little concerned, right, that maybe he's being brought along a little too quickly, but he at least seems to have a ton of potential. Just his skill set, like, being so broad. And like, I love interviews that this guy gives. I love the way he talks. I love everything about Kevin Holland. So yeah, really exciting. Kind of big step up for him.
Yeah, it's a big step up, and he's a tweener too. He's been, jumping weight classes, taking fights often. So I wonder if the size is going to play a factor. But yeah, I mean, he's slick on the mat. He's got good striking. He looks like the total package, man. Again, big step up, but I'm excited to see it. That's a main event that we got a nice replacement for. Hopefully Darren Till gets back quick, because I always like to see Darren Till, man. He's fun. Good personality too.
Yeah, another A+ social media game. Maybe the best in the business from Darren Till.
Yeah. All right. Trying to so let's just jump into, I'm sorry, I'm kind of skimming through this as we're going. I do apologize. Let's jump into the fights that did happen this past week. Start with Bellator. Bellator happened Thursday night. Corey Anderson makes his Bellator debut, and I thought he really did what he had to do in there. 44-year-old Melvin Manhoof, we kind of talked about it last week. Yeah, there's always going to be the threat of a knockout with Manhoof, but Manhoof, especially at 205 at this stage in his career, he's not the scariest debut, but you know what? You just got to take who you fight. The opportunity presented itself for Anderson. He goes out there, he gets it done in just impressive fashion. I mean, he really stifled Manhoof to the point where Anderson was winning most of the striking exchanges. His feints were throwing Manhoof off. Takedowns were there. The ground and pound looked vicious, no matter who was underneath him. I thought Corey Anderson was impressive, and he did what he had to do.
Yeah. I mean, the knock on Corey Anderson is always going to be either his chin or just kind of his overall athletic ability, because I think, at least on the feet, he has trouble putting guys away with his power. But if he has a guy like Melvin Manhoof who, if Corey Anderson has a clear stylistic advantage, these are the fights he's going to win basically always, unless he gets totally into trouble. He's a really smart fighter. He sticks to a game plan. And here the game plan was like, didn't take a rocket scientist for sure to figure out, like, Corey Anderson should take this guy down and beat him up. And that did.
That's exactly what he did. So now it bears the question. Do you do Vadim Nemkov versus Corey Anderson right off the rip? I know Phil Davis is right there. Phil Davis wants another shot at Nemkov. What would you do? Do you go fresh fight with Phil Davis, fresh fight with Corey Anderson, or do you go Phil Davis versus Nemkov?
I like Corey Anderson. I mean, I'm looking, let's see, Phil Davis, his last win was that split decision over Lyoto Machida, which is not super impressive. And like, a 2020 split decision win over a light heavyweight Lyoto Machida is not, I don't think, should give you, not that a 2020 win over Melvin Manhoof means a ton, but at least Corey Anderson went out there and got the finish. I'd like to see Corey Anderson in there. I mean, and Bellator seemed to be like pushing him, even like 2 weeks ago, they were advertising, the Bellator debut of Overtime Anderson. Like, Bellator seems invested in him for whatever reason. I say, throw him in there for the title shot. It's not like Vadim Nemkov is like a huge name for their company. Not that Anderson necessarily is either, but I'd like to see just that division moving. Light heavyweight is not one of the strongest divisions for anybody, but particularly not for Bellator. So they got a contender. He's fresh. Put him in there.
Yeah, I mean, he was one of the top light heavyweights in the world for the UFC coming over. I really like Nemkov, though. I think he's solid. We saw what he did with Bader, right? He mowed through him. Yeah, I think make that fight. I think it's a better fight than we already saw Phil Davis versus Nemkov, right? I'd rather see the fresh new toy. I'd rather see Corey Anderson. And yeah, it seems like he's happy here. I wish he'd go back to Beast in 25-8. That's a way better nickname than Overtime. But yeah, he did what he had to do, man.
Beast in 25-8. One of the all-time best. I mean,
It was
it's
good, man. It was fun.
I don't hate Corey Anderson, but how did he go from like a so bad that it's good nickname to like just a generically bad nickname? Like Beast in 25-8, bad nickname, but it's so bad that it's good. Overtime, just bad.
If you search Beast in 25-8, you're gonna find Corey Anderson. If you search Overtime, you're gonna find like 30 like 3-13 fighters from Lincoln, Nebraska on that list. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's got that nickname. Come on, man.
Yeah. Beast in 25-8. The fact that it's at least like super original, I appreciate.
I think the most impressive guy on this card outside of Anderson was Austin Vanderford. He takes a lot of shit because I think people associate him with not liking Paige Van Zant. They like to call him Austin Van Zant, yada yada yada. It's funny, but man, this guy can fight. He moves to 10-0. He beats a solid guy in Vinicius de Jesus, and really just man mops the mat with him. I mean, dominates the wrestling. His ground and pound looked fierce. You know, I don't think he was ever too close to a finish, but nonetheless, he dominated every portion of that fight, and I thought he looked really, really good doing it.
Yeah, he's a physical specimen. I don't know how that guy ever made welterweight because
He's a beast, man.
He's a beast. He obviously has tons of actual like wrestling technique. He's not just, Shane Carr winning people or anything like that. Yeah, I feel like the sky's the limit for him, whether or not you begrudge him for his association with Paige Van Zant, which, by the way, I've interviewed Austin Vanderford and he loves being called Mr. Van Zant. Like, he doesn't fucking care. He's like, I don't care. My wife is wealthy. My wife is famous and she's a professional athlete. Like, why would I not want to be associated with her? So more props to him, man. I like the guy. I mean, he has the fact that he embraces that with a smile is a really good sign. Otherwise, he could be extremely unlikable if he was like, no, my last name's Vanderford. Like,
I like that he goes with it.
Yeah.
Dude, we mentioned him last week, but a fight with John Salter would be awesome. John Salter's a very good black belt and a great grappler. And that would be a big step up for Vanderford. Again, it's not as easy to see like the whole pool of Bellator middleweights in front of you.
Man, I mean, I'm looking at John Salter's record right now. He's on a 3-fight win streak, and the only guy he's lost to since 2012 is the former champion Lovato Jr. So, yeah, Salter versus Vanderford for like a #1 contender fight. I think makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, I agree, man. Trying to look.
I mean, you got guys like Costello Van Steenis also in Bellator. I don't know. I mean, we talked about last week. Their middleweight division is just not super, super deep, but Vanderford is certainly a guy that I think they should continue to be interested in.
I just don't know like how fast they're going to try to, because Bellator sometimes takes forever with their prospects, and sometimes they get him moving relatively quickly. So, yeah, I don't really know where they're going to go with him, but I like the pickup. I like that he got picked up by Bellator, as opposed to UFC after that Contender Series victory, which was also pretty damn impressive. So yeah, dude's a stud, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really quick before we get off Bellator, did you see the Derek Anderson finish with Kelis Mota?
I didn't watch that fight live, at least.
It was the one where they brought the instant replay into play.
Yes. I know what you're talking about.
So Mota is going to get up. Anderson throws a kick that clips him, but as soon as a kick hits, I believe he has like one like his foot and his hand on the mat. So it was pretty wild. But I like that they used instant replay. They award Anderson with the finish in a fight that he was losing pretty much the majority of it. So I think it's pretty cool to see instant replay used. I think they still have to work out some kinks, but I love the idea.
Yeah, and I believe the UFC is now using it too. We've talked about it before. It was always available to them in the rules, and now they're actually using it.
Yeah, I mean, why not?
Yeah, why not? Like, it's like 2020. We could have said it. We could have said it 10 years ago. It's 2010. Why are we not using instant replay? Like, there's no reason not to.
Exactly. All right, let's talk about UFC from this past weekend. Also in the light heavyweight division, Man, we said it last week. You know, we call these things, right? It's like that Adesanya versus Jan Blachowicz announcement was so weirdly placed, so weirdly timed, because look at what happens. Glover Teixeira at 41 years old goes out there and wins his 5th straight fight, finishing Thiago Santos, the guy who was almost like a boogeyman figure after fighting John Jones to a very close decision with 2 blown out legs. But man, Glover is that dude. He is just one of the OGs of the sport. And now with Dana White's acknowledging that Glover has to be taken seriously for a title shot. You know, I believe Jan acknowledged it. Everyone's kind of, it's like, why didn't we just wait to see this fight, see where we went? Because now it's like how do you deny Glover Teixeira at this point a title shot, man? It's like he's 41 years old. He's not getting any younger. You have so much time to do Adesanya at light heavyweight with a number of different guys. You know what? Guess what the bigger fight is? John Jones versus Adesanya. Go make that fight right now. Why not? Give Glover his title shot. I want to see him fight Jan Blachowicz. I mean, Glover's the kind of guy that he might even win the belt and retire with the belt, you know? That would kind of be like the ribbon on what is an excellent career that spanned a long, long time.
Yeah, that would be, first of all, that would be like poetic justice, because do you remember before Glover got to the UFC way back in the day? I'm looking at his record. So it had to have been, let's see, he made his UFC debut in 2012, but he had been a guy that was like long considered one of the best light heavyweights in the world, but because of visa issues, like couldn't fight in the United States. Yeah. The UFC didn't sign him. So he was a guy that was like, people thought of as like a top 10 light heavyweight in the world for a long time before he even made his UFC career. And he wasn't fighting in big shows. He wasn't fighting, I guess he has some WEC fights, but that was before WEC was really big. And he wasn't in a marquee lightweight, marquee division in the WEC, but that would be poetic justice. I was shocked. I'm pretty sure both you and I picked Glover Teixeira to win this past weekend. He was like a 2-1 underdog. How?
I didn't realize that he was that big of an underdog until I didn't actually get to watch the fight live. I had to watch the same thing the next day, and I did not realize that he was that big of an underdog. I guess it just kind of slipped my mind, or I didn't look at the odds, but I thought the odds should have been way closer than that. I mean, Glover has looked extremely good lately on this 4-fight win streak, you know, and the thing with him that's lasted so long for him is his like recoverability, right? Like we've seen him get hurt so many times in so many different fights, and still at 41 years old, he's just able to keep his wits about him. His wrestling and his grappling is just so damn good in this division. You know, once he latches onto your legs, whether he's hurt or not, he generally is able to scramble to a takedown. We saw it in the first round of this fight. Thiago Santos hurts him. Right? Looks like he might be able to get a finish because Santos is an absolute monster. Glover attaches to his legs, shoots, ends up on top and completely, I think, wiped out what Thiago Santos round. He beats the piss out of him from the top, does much of the same in the second, and then rinse and repeat in the third, right? It's the guy is a stud.
Yeah. I mean, I was shocked that he was such an underdog, because like that finishing sequence kind of displayed exactly why I thought Glover Teixeira was going to win this fight, because Thiago Santos, I think I described him last week as a glass cannon. That was like, I don't know. I'm sure Thiago Santos works on his grappling, and I'm not saying he's not a tough guy or anything, but the ending sequence, Santos was on top of Teixeira, like beating the shit out of him in the third round. All Teixeira did was get an underhook from half guard, use that to work to a double leg, and 15 seconds later, he's on Santos's back, and Santos, you know, gave up both hooks, gave up his neck, like really, really quickly. That's personally like why I thought Thiago Santos was going to lose this fight, because when the going gets really tough, his grappling seems to just completely fall by the wayside. And yeah, Teixeira, an uber veteran, is not going to, you know, he's going to be really, really difficult to put away. Given how like calm under pressure he is, and how much he like trusts in his jiu-jitsu. Like he fights like a guy who, he's a good striker, but he fights like a guy who like needs to get the fight to the mat, which might be true at his age. Like he probably understands, you know what? I'm not like, I pack a good punch. I'm not a terrible boxer or anything like that, especially by light heavyweight standards, but he seems to understand against basically everybody in this division, my path to victory is going to be double leg, beat you up, pass your guard, rear naked choke, or arm triangle. And he fought like that here. I was pretty impressed, but also at the same time, man, like not surprised. This is pretty typical Glover Teixeira and pretty typical Thiago Santos for this point.
Yeah, I agree, man. He's just got very good opportunistic grappling, right?
Yeah.
His passing is so good. His ground and pound setup, his passing is so good. Yeah, he's got heavy ass hands, man, and that power translate to the ground. I mean, he literally like beat the piss out of Thiago Santos on the mat. We've seen him do it his whole career, man. 5 wins in a row. Give this man a title shot.
2 finishes of guys that went the distance with John Jones too. I think that's worth noting. He finished both Thiago Santos and Anthony Smith.
Violent finishes too. Like, you know, obviously he chokes out Thiago Santos, but his ground and pound is violent, man. I don't know. Like, that's the thing. Like, if they do Jan versus Adesanya, like, you're gonna have Glover sitting out until what, mid 2021, and then if Adesanya does win, who knows what John Jones is gonna do? It's like, I don't know.
My thing is, and I said this when Adesanya Blachowicz was first announced. I understand it's not official yet, but I think they saw Blachowicz as a weak champion and somebody that Adesanya could win a belt from. And we just got done saying how good Glover Teixeira is, but I don't think he's any weaker or stronger than Jan Blachowicz.
No,
I think Adesanya stands just as good of a chance beating Glover Teixeira as he does Blachowicz. So if they really want to give Adesanya like a chance to win another belt, he could do that against Glover Teixeira. Or if Jan beats Teixeira, then that's fine. You know, you go ahead with Blachowicz, Adesanya. But yeah, go ahead and give him a title shot. Adesanya could still take another fight at middleweight and hopefully retain the belt. You know, there's plenty of options, but there's very few good reasons to deny Teixeira a title shot here.
Yeah, I think you got to give it to him, man. He's earned it. He deserves it. Dude's the man. Connecticut too. He came from Brazil straight to Connecticut. Really nice guy. I've got to train with him before. He's an absolute stud. Super nice in the gym. Yeah, I'm happy for him.
Yeah, I liked hearing him shout out Danbury in his post-fight interviews.
It's great.
Yeah.
Co-main event sees another 41-year-old man. I was kind of like, and they mentioned it on the broadcast, and I was kind of like yesterday, like looking through Andrei Arlovski's record, and dude, it's like he debuted in the UFC in 2000. He made his pro MMA debut in 1999, and he's one of those guys like, you know, he fought like early UFC. He won the title in early UFC. He won the title in February 2005. I was still in high school at that time. You know, he did his thing outside of the UFC for a long time. He comes back and he reminds me of like Alistair Overeem, where like he went through that really chinny part of his career where it was like anytime he got touched, he was out of there. He took a lot of losses in his career, but this late stage Andrei Arlovski is super impressive, man. I mean, he's still fighting some of the biggest guys in the sport. He's not always beating them, but he's found a way to craft his game to where he doesn't take a lot of damage. He's still super tricky on the feet. I'm impressed with him, man. Every time he fights, every time he wins, I'm super impressed. And the longevity of his career is second to none.
Yeah, I mean, not the most exciting fighter recently, but one of the smarter ones. A guy who certainly recognizes that he cannot rely on athleticism alone anymore, and he's really like adjusted his game. I think the Overeem comparison is like spot on. Both guys that I think at a midpoint of their career were still fighting like young guys, and then they realized, oh shit, this isn't gonna work. I gotta like do something differently. I gotta be really smart. I gotta apply a much more careful approach to fighting, and it's worked out. I think Tanner Boser is a pretty good heavyweight too. I mean, he's not like I don't think either you or I thought he was going to be a future world champion or anything, but I think a very good heavyweight, speedy. I thought he'd be able to contend with Arlovski's speed, and I think a combination of Arlovski being surprisingly fast and also just really smart with when he chose to attack threw Boser off.
Yeah, I think Boser, I don't know if he's a little starstruck in there too, but he seemed like he's very hesitant to engage throughout the first 2 rounds. I thought he engaged a bit more and had some success in the 3rd round, but Yeah, I mean, what else can you say for Arlovsky? The dude just will not go away. He's 41 years old. He's shown like no sign of slowing down. And man, he's like one of those guys that when you're trying to build a prospect, you got to be careful bringing him in there with Andre Arlovsky because he doesn't always do it, but he is a day spoiler for these guys.
Yeah, and that's what they did. I mean, Bozer was not like a mega star or anything, but they were definitely trying to build him a little bit. I mean, he was in a co-main event spot here.
Yeah, I still like him, man. I like the look. I like the personality. He's fun. I think that's a shallow enough division where he's not going to go too far down, and not be able to pick himself up back relatively quickly.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, 2-3 wins, and he's like probably in the top 15. So
yeah. Best fight I think on the card that produced a lot of good fights, honestly, was Rony Barcelos versus Khalid Taha. These guys put it on the line. Barcelos is a stud. It's crazy he is not even ranked, and I believe he's like 5 or 6-0 in the UFC now after this one.
And like on a crazy long win streak. I think he was an LFA champion. I'm super high on Barcelos. I have been since he came to the UFC. He's like 35, but don't let that fool you. The guy is obviously like huge for the weight class, super athletic, and man, I cannot sing his praises enough. I didn't think he would look quite so good on the feet. He is more of a grappler, like a top control guy by trade, but he was throwing the fucking kitchen sink at Taha and like putting together some incredible combinations. He was throwing his right hand like over the top overhand and then uppercut once the guy went his guard, put his guard up, and then straight down the middle. Like cannot be impressed enough with Barcelos, who I think really made a statement here for like a pretty significant step up in competition against. Was he scheduled to fight Cody Stamen at one point? I think like that's a fight that I'd like to see him in. But really, he is, like I said, a guy who's really falling under the radar. And I understand, like, I don't think he speaks English. He's not like from a mega camp or anything like that. It's going to be hard for the UFC to promote him, but as far as fighting talent, he is for sure like I think top 10 caliber.
Yeah, I mean that division is so stacked. A guy like that, is outside of the top 15. What does that tell you, right? He's a stud. Giga Chiakadze gets a big win. Nice knockout over Jamie Simmons. Yan Xiaonan opens up the card, defeating Claudia Gadelha by unanimous decision. She's been on a tear lately. I believe this is like her 4th or 5th or 6th fight in the UFC. She's already got wins over Karolina Kowalkiewicz, Angela Hill, and Claudia Gadelha. Obviously, the UFC's got to see dollar signs sometime down in the future, especially when fans come back for a all-Chinese main event between Yan Xiaonan and Wang Zhili. I mean, I would say she's probably one more big win away from that. But again, you'd probably want to wait until you could have crowds for that one.
Yeah, no, I think she's got to be one fight away at the most. I wouldn't mind seeing her fight Carla Esparza. I think is a fight that could make sense, or the winner between Michelle Watterson and Amanda Ribas. Okay. Either one of those would work, but yeah, I think the UFC does see a potential all China title fight there, which is exciting. I thought she looked really good. I still think she would have her hands pretty full against Weili Zhang, but that's why they do the fights.
Yeah, right. So we'll see. A lot of action on the undercard as well. Alexander Romanov, we've been pretty big on him. Gets another big win by forearm choke. It was literally like stealing your lunch money in the, you know what I'm saying, at recess. But he's a stud, man. He's a very good grappler.
Yeah. Didn't we say, I can't remember if I said it on this podcast or the prelim primer last week, but I predicted it was going to be a weird submission. Some shit like a Nogi Ezekiel, or I think I maybe even said forearm choke.
No way.
But that's it.
That's awesome.
If it was on the prelim primer, I can go back and listen to that.
I think it definitely was on the prelim primer.
So I mean, but like, I'm not bragging about that because I think that was a pretty obvious outcome.
Yeah, it was. It was a good matchup for him, but I think he's going to be ranked and moving up the heavyweight ladder pretty quickly because he's a stud.
Well, let me ask you this: how would he do against a guy like Andrei Arlovsky? Because you just got done saying you got to be careful feeding your prospects to him.
It's a good question. I mean, dude, Arlovsky is the ultimate gatekeeper. I like his chances because of his wrestling.
Yeah.
He has extremely good wrestling, good grappling. He's got good throws. Yeah, I like his chances solely based on that. But yeah, I mean, again, if you're tentative against Arlovsky, those are his fights to win. That could be that honestly could make sense as his next fight. Good call.
I think that, I mean, I just thought of it just now that we were talking about it, but yeah, I think that makes sense. And I think you're right that the fights that Arlovsky is winning he's winning against strikers. And you get a humongous grappler like this guy in there, it's going to be a different story.
Agreed. Darren Elkins does Darren Elkins things, gets a third round submission. Did you see the pictures or the fight with Ramiz Brahimaj and Max Griffin?
I did, unfortunately.
Oh,
It's
Lord.
making my ears hurt right now thinking about it. That was some gnarly stuff. It reminds me of was it Kazushi Sakuraba when his like
Yeah.
cauliflower ear got ripped off and it looked like a fucking pot sticker dipped in sweet and sour sauce just laying on the mat. That's what it
James
reminded me
Thompson
of.
way back in the day.
Yep. No
Yeah, it
thank
was
you.
nasty. It
No
was a
thank
nasty
you.
one.
Yeah.
But Max Griffin looks impressive, man. Gets a win. I know friend of the show, Daniel Vreeland, had put out a message saying that he texted back and forth with Ramiz and said he was fine. It was all cosmetic damage, so that's good to hear.
Yeah. I guess that's some gnarly cosmetic damage, I guess. But
It
yeah.
is nasty. A lot of stitches are going to go into that ear.
Yes.
All right. We do have some cards this weekend. And as we alluded to at the beginning of the show, I think Bellator does have the much better card this weekend. And obviously, which we're going to talk about in a few, the UFC did lose their main event with Islam Makhachev
Hey,
falling out.
sorry to interrupt you, but this
Yeah.
happened like literally while we were on the podcast talking just now. They found a replacement to fight RDA.
Oh, you want to start with that card then?
Sure.
All right.
I'll read this.
Break the news.
It's a tweet from Brett Okamoto, like literally 36 minutes ago. Per UFC officials, none other than Paul Felder is stepping in on 5 days' notice to fight
Yes.
Rafael Dos Anjos.
Yes.
Still a 5-round fight, still 155 pounds. Which, when we were getting ready for this show and I was thinking of potential replacements, Paul Felder came to mind, but I thought, no way that guy can make 155 because he famously like balloons up to like 200 pounds. And I know he's been doing a lot of commentary work. I thought he was just out of the question. Damn. Like that's quite a shock.
Paul
Good for
Felder
Paul
is
Felder.
a G, man.
Yeah. He's got to
Paul
be cutting a ton
Felder
of weight.
is a G. Yeah, I mean that's going to be a big weight cut, but I mean we've seen Paul Felder fight short notice fights before. He's a guy that seems like he stays in shape. I don't know how close to 155 he's going to be at this moment. But yeah, dude, I love it. Love it. And I honestly like it for RDA too, because we've
Yes.
seen RDA like dude, if you look at RDA's record, right? Like that guy is literally the epitome of like a guy that will never say no. He has fought everybody, every style, but like the last like
Grapplers. It's all been grapplers.
grapplers, and Makhachev, great grappler. So I'm excited to see RDA get in there with a guy that is going to stand and trade with him. RDA has great striking. He's got great grappling himself, but Paul Felder's not going to come out there and try to wrestle fuck him. I really wanted to see Makhachev in this spot because I think he deserves that step up, but this is a good replacement. I really dig this one.
Yeah, I actually think like I was more excited to see Makhachev just because, like you said, I wanted to see the step up for him. But I actually think this is a better, more competitive fight because I was prepared to pick Makhachev running away because, like we talked about, you look at RDA's record, decision loss to Michael Chiesa, big old grappler. I mean, he lost to Leon Edwards, no shame in that. Before that, he had a win over Kevin Lee. Before that, 2 decision losses to Kamaru Usman and Colby Covington, 2 big old grapplers. So I completely expected Makhachev to do that against RDA, but like you said, man, Paul Felder's not going to do that. Paul Felder will stand. If anything, RDA is going to be the one trying to take Felder down.
Yeah, and even the Kevin Lee fight was grapple heavy.
Yes,
you know what I'm saying. Like I'm excited to see Dos Anjos in there with a strike first fighter. I think it's going to be really fun. Again, a lot of questions with the weight cut and how Paul Felder's cardio is going to look, but I personally thought Paul Felder beat Dan Hooker in the last fight. That fight was wild. It was super close. Felder teased retirement, but maybe he needs fights like these where he doesn't have to think about it too much and he just has to either say yes or no on the spot. But again, a win over RDA, I think, puts Paul Felder right in the thick of things in that crazy ass division. And I mean, dude, our RDA is still trucking along, man. It's been a rough go for him lately, but a win here, yeah, I guess keeps the train moving, right?
Yeah, and this is man, this is a hard one. I know we're kind of breaking down this fight on the go without really
You know,
preparing for it, but
I don't mean to interrupt you either, but same thing too. This is RDA's first fight back at lightweight since 2017.
wow. So he's got a big cut to deal with as well,
Yeah, yeah,
for sure. I mean, like I said, just thinking of the fight right now as we learned it's happening, I do think Felder probably wins unless his cardio is way off. I assume RDA will try to pressure and try to like work him against the cage and maybe get some takedowns, but Felder really hard to take down, and I think I know he is super dangerous in the clinch with elbows, knees, things like that. I think it's still going to be a tough night for RDA. I think he would have been blown out by Makachev,
yeah.
but I think this is going to be a much funner fight. That in my head, I see Felder edging out and kind of winning in the clinch and then winning in open space, especially later if his cardio is there. I totally did not expect Paul Felder to throw his name in the hat just because I
Did
assumed
not
he
either.
was. I assumed he was. He had said that he would only be enticed back for big fights, and I think this
That's
is
why I
one.
was.
It's a main
I
event, but I didn't
Yeah,
think
that's
he was
true.
going to be here.
I thought like a Michael Chandler would have
Yes,
brought him back if they wanted to do like
yes.
the Chandler debut. But yeah, he didn't even cross my mind. But I guess main event, short notice. He doesn't have to think about it too much. I don't know.
I mean, he also is. I think the UFC likes him. Obviously, commentary work, that kind of stuff.
Right.
Doing these last minute fights, he also understands that, like, hey, if I do this, like, they're going to continue to scratch my back.
Yeah,
So
I dig it, man. Props to Felder, props to RDA for making it happen. Because we were talking a little bit before we went on the air today. Like if they weren't able to fill that fight, dude, I don't know if I don't know how they would have went ahead with this card because sans that fight, the main card, at least on Wikipedia, is Abdul Razak Al Hassan versus Chaos Williams, Julian Marquez versus Saparek Sarafov, and Eric Anders versus Antonio Arroyo. I mean,
slim pickings.
very slim pickings, and there's not. Yeah, so I'm glad they did this, but there's a couple fun names on this card. Kay Hansen's, she's back fighting Corey McKenna. Randa Marcos is on this card. Again, the three fights we mentioned should be solid. And then the main event is should be a banger.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like you said, I think some interesting names on this card is the best way to describe it. Also, I believe is Kaneko Murata. Yep. Former Invicta strawweight champ is making her UFC debut against Randa Marcos.
Yep.
That's a tough fight for her, but
That is.
if you're a fan of good, really, really good wrestling, Kaneko Murata has that in spades. I think she still needs to kind of round out her game a little bit. I actually think she lost her last fight against Emily Ducote, but at women's strawweight, if you have the kind of wrestling she does, you're like a threat to a huge portion of the division because a lot of those women at strawweight, as exciting as they are, just don't have the wrestling to compete with someone like her.
Yeah. Yeah, so it should be interesting. I definitely got that one circled. Randa Marcos is always a tough out for everybody. She's again one of those like perfect gatekeepers, right? And I don't mean to sound condescending, but you gotta call it like you see it. Louis Smolka's also on this card too. He's always fun to watch.
Yeah, that Smolka Quinones fight I would circle for potential fight of the night, or at least like a super fun scramble fest for sure.
Fun scrap.
Yeah.
But as we mentioned, Bellator clearly has the better card this week. Thursday night, love the Thursday night cards. Bellator is back, and their featherweight Grand Prix is back, which is so awesome to see, which means we do have a title on the line. 5-round main event between Patricio Pitbull and Pedro Carvalho. Pitbull, one of the best 145-pounders in the world, regardless of organization. He's an absolute stud, taking on Carvalho, who's on he's on like a 6-fight win streak. Big step up though, taking on Pitbull, who's been probably the face of Bellator for a long, long time.
Yeah, I am super excited about this tournament. You know, getting back into swing, and I want to believe that Pedro Carvalho is a real threat to Pitbull here, but and he does. You know, he's really tricky off of his back. He kind of mimics McGregor fighting out of that straight blast gym on the feet, but he doesn't have big power. He gets taken down a lot, which is why he's probably so good off of his back. And I just think I see Pitbull moving inside of his range here, throwing wide hooks to the body, followed by wide hooks to the head. Carvalho holds his chin kind of high. And if it gets on the mat, Carvalho, like Sam Cecilia took Carvalho's back. Derek Campos took Carvalho's back. Pitbull is right. He's a black belt, right? He is very good on the very good on the ground. I think if Carvalho gives up his back to Pitbull, it's going to be all she wrote. That said, though, like Pitbull's one of those guys that anytime he's fighting, like we should be watching because he's one of the very best fighters in the world, pound for pound.
He's one of the best, man, and the experience level is just so much higher here. Pitbull's fought the best of the best. You look at his last couple wins. I mean, you got Michael Chandler in there. You got Manuel Sanchez in there.
Juan
Pitbull's a freaking
Archuleta.
stud, man. Yeah, Juan Archuleta, the bantamweight champ. So, fun fight, but yeah, it's gonna be a tough one for Carvalho. And then on the flip side, you have Daniel Weichel taking on Emmanuel Sanchez, and I believe this is a rematch, correct?
I think Weichel has beat him already, if I remember correctly, in maybe like 2018.
Yep, by split decision. I remember it being a fun fight. But yeah, these are two action fighters. Love this fight. It should be a banger again. Patricio Pitbull does have a win over Daniel Weichel. So it should be fun, man.
Yeah, no, I like Manny Sanchez here, even though he lost their first meeting. I think Emmanuel Sanchez is one of the guys. If I had to pick who I think is most likely to beat Pitbull in this tournament, it might be probably AJ McKee is number one, but I think number two is probably Pitbull, or not Pitbull, is
he also has a loss to Pitbull. Emmanuel Sanchez.
Manny Sanchez, yes. But that was a close fight. He hurt him in the first round. And I think he is certainly one of those guys who has the potential to get better and come back and beat him. So, and that's if I have the bracket correct in my head, the winner between Weichel and Sanchez will fight the winner of Pitbull Carvalho. Yep. So, which we both think is probably going to be Pitbull. So,
yeah,
really excited.
I favor Sanchez as well.
I love this tournament. I'm happy that it's like going again. It's kind of a bummer that it lost some steam when it first kicked up, but here we go, man. And a lot of those guys like Darion Caldwell and AJ McKee, they are not afraid to talk shit. Even Pedro Carvalho, kind of a soft-spoken guy, but they're trying to build a beef between Pitbull brothers and SBG. Yeah. So Carvalho has even talked shit to Pitbull before. Like, I love it. I love the tournament. I love that it gives guys room to like talk shit to guys that they could potentially fight instead of just like nebulously calling out other guys. I'm excited, man. I'm excited to see Pitbull fight again, mostly.
Yeah, I am too, man. And then the co-main event, absolutely love it. You know, this one is what did Jack Swagger say? He got a phoner after his fight. You'll fight boner. This fight gives me a phoner. Logan Storley taking on Yaroslov Amosov, both undefeated. I mean, I think Amosov was due for a big step up. And it's kind of weird that he's, I don't want to say taking a step back fighting Logan Storley, but he's fighting a guy in Logan Storley who is a prospect as well, although I think Amosov is a little bit further ahead. But I love the matchmaking. You're going to find out which one of these guys is the real. Probably going to find out both these guys are the real. I lean Amosov here, but I think Storley's a live dog.
Same. And the only reason that's like basically exactly like, I don't know what the odds are. Let me see here. They got Amosov as a -300 favorite, which I think is way too wide. And that's just their, I mean, you look at Amosov's 24-0 record and it's hard not to like be like, whoa, wow, this guy's really good. The thing is though, he's a grappler.
Yeah.
I lean Amosov just because he has a decision win over Ed Ruth, who is an incredible wrestler. Yeah. There's an argument to be made though that Logan Storley has better MMA wrestling,
Yep.
and better ground and pound, better overall MMA game. So yeah, I think it's quite a bit closer than that. I do, like I said, favor Amosov a little bit just because he has a win over a pretty similar skill set in Ed Ruth. But yeah, Logan Storley, if people don't know, they're about to know, man. He is the real.
Yeah, it's a fun fight. It's a fun matchup, and I'm really excited to see it, man. Again, if you don't have that one circled, circle that one twice because it's going to be a banger. Aaron Pico is on this card. I'm always excited to see Aaron Pico fight. Don't give up on the man. I know it's been a little bit rough going, but I think he showed in his last fight that he is going to commit himself more to a game plan and a smart game plan as opposed to just going out there and throwing bungalows because, his chin has not held up the best just yet. But yeah, I'm excited to see Aaron Pico back.
Yeah, always exciting to see him, even if he has taken his foot off the gas pedal a little bit. I mean, like that Henry Corrales knockout, I think probably taught him quite a bit of a lesson.
Yeah.
And then he lost to Boric right after that. So, yeah, I think we're going to see him work his wrestling a little bit more.
Kerry Melendez is also on this card too. There's a couple fun fights. Devin Paulo, Manny Murrow is on this card. Connery Gracie's on this card. Yeah, this is a good one, man. And I think Bellator needs a card like this because I think they've gotten a little bit slow out of the gate, with their CBS Sports debut because of injuries and things shuffling around. But this card is really freaking good.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope they got. I assume not because of COVID stuff, but it would be very cool if they had AJ McKee and Darion Caldwell there, just to, even though those guys have to fight each other, just to see them talk shit against Pitbull even more. Yeah. Bellator does that a lot.
Pitbull fights with everybody, man. Those guys are always scuffling people.
Yep, 100%. And those two guys that I just named, Darion Caldwell and AJ McKee, I feel like they're also like on everybody's nerves, talking shit all the time. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm very excited to see this tournament continue.
Same. All right, man. I think we hit it all. Right. We started off with some news, ended with some fights. Guys, again, thank you for listening. Please follow us on YouTube. We posted some technique videos. We're going to be rolling out a lot of technique of the week videos. We also got some other fun stuff very soon on the horizon. So follow us, hit the subscribe button. We always appreciate it. Enjoy the fights this weekend, and we'll talk to you all soon.
Face the pain. Face the pain, no escape. Can you step to this? Face the pain, no escape. Can you step to this? Face the pain.